What would you do if the person you loved most chose his first love over you? Even on your wedding day. What if that same person hung up on you as you lay dying in a car crash? Luna thought her story was over. She thought the betrayal, the heartbreak, and the tragic end were final. But sometimes, fate gives us a second chance. And this time, she wasn't going to waste it. The phone call came on what should have been the happiest day of my life. I was standing in my wedding dress, adjusting my veil one last time, when Cyrus's phone rang. The moment he answered, everything changed. His face went pale. His knuckles turned white as he gripped the phone. His first love, Tiffany, had committed suicide. On our wedding day, of all days. What happened next still haunts me. Cyrus looked at me with eyes full of blame and said the words that shattered my world. Luna, you owe her this. He forced me to wear mourning clothes. He decorated our house like a funeral hall. Our wedding became a memorial service for the woman who had always stood between us. From that moment, his heart could no longer hold anyone else. Certainly not me. Months passed in this nightmare. I became a ghost in my own home, watching my husband mourn another woman. Then came the car accident. My car spun out of control on a rainy night. As metal twisted around me and darkness closed in, I did what any wife would do. I called my husband. He answered on the third ring. Through my pain, I whispered, Cyrus, I'm hurt. I need help. His response still echoes in my mind. If you're dying, call 911. I'm not a doctor. I can't save you. Then he hung up. He actually hung up on me. Those were the last words I heard before everything went black. But death wasn't the end of my story. Somehow, impossibly, I opened my eyes again. I was back. Back to before the wedding. Back to before the tragedy. Back to when I still had a choice. This time, I wasn't going to be the victim. This time, I was going to rewrite the ending. The first test came quickly. I was in our usual coffee shop when Tiffany appeared, coffee cup in hand, ready to accidentally spill it on me. This had happened before. In my previous life, I'd stood there and taken it, letting her play the victim while everyone blamed me. Not anymore. As she raised the cup, I moved faster. I kicked the table, sending the coffee flying back at her. The hot liquid splashed across her white dress, her perfect hair, her shocked face. She let out a scream of disbelief. Cyrus, she cried, throwing herself into his arms. She poured coffee on me. The coffee shop erupted in whispers. Is the wife fighting the mistress? They must be a couple, hugging like that. This woman is so jealous. She's really despicable. Tiffany buried her head in Cyrus's chest, but when she looked at me, I saw the triumph in her eyes. She thought she'd won again. She thought I'd back down like I always did. Cyrus stepped forward, his voice stern. Luna, how many times do I have to tell you? Tiffany is not in good health. You should give in to her. Give in, give in, give in. Those words had controlled my entire previous life. Not anymore. Before he could say another word, I grabbed the nearest coffee pot and poured it over Tiffany's head. The entire contents. Every last drop. The coffee shop fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. Tiffany's scream pierced the air. Coffee dripped from her hair, staining her clothes, running down her face. She looked like a complete mess. Cyrus stared at me in shock. Luna, what are you doing? Apologize, he demanded. I looked him straight in the eye and said, word by word, in your dreams. The whispers started again, but this time they were different. Wait, so this woman is actually the mistress. Mistresses are so arrogant these days. He looks decent, but he actually does such despicable things. I smiled at their shocked faces and raised my voice so everyone could hear. Cyrus, let me inform you that we're done. I'm not a trash can. I don't recycle garbage. I wish you a long and happy life. Then I walked out, my back straight, my head high. Standing on the busy street, I felt dizzy with freedom. For the first time in years, I had stood up for myself. For the first time, I had refused to be the victim. Cyrus and I had met in college. He was student body president, tall and confident, giving speeches on stage. I remember watching him talk about fraud prevention, thinking how boring the topic was, but being mesmerized by him anyway. He was everything I thought I wanted. Gentle, intelligent, respected. I fell hard and fast. Maybe that was the problem. There's a saying that in every relationship, someone loves more. I was definitely the one who loved more. And maybe that's why it was always doomed to end in tragedy. I first met Tiffany 3 months after Cyrus and I got together. She appeared at the school gate like something out of a movie. White dress, long hair flowing in the wind. She looked like an angel. But angels don't usually have claws. The moment she saw us holding hands, she bypassed me completely and threw herself into Cyrus's arms like an excited puppy. It took her a long time to let go. When she finally acknowledged me, her smile was ice cold. Hello, she said. I'm Tiffany, Cyrus's childhood friend. Cyrus had posted photos of us on social media. She had definitely seen them. But she acted like I was invisible, like I was just some random girl getting in the way of their reunion. During our first meal together, she made her feelings clear. When I reached for food, she spun the lazy Susan away. When I spoke, she ignored me. When I mentioned I couldn't drink alcohol, she called me pretentious. When I asked Cyrus about her behavior later, he told me her tragic story. Rare disease. Abandoned by her parents. Couldn't control her bladder when nervous. That night, I couldn't sleep. I felt so guilty for thinking badly of her. After that, every time she showed up inappropriately, I turned a blind eye. The breaking point came during graduation season. There was a department gathering I couldn't skip. When I arrived, everyone was already drunk. A classmate had sent me a video from earlier in the evening. Tiffany was leaning against Cyrus, her cheeks flushed from alcohol. Some friends who couldn't stand it told her to mind her own business. She pretended not to hear. Then it happened. She got nervous and had an attack. She wet herself right there in front of everyone. When I arrived and passed by a half-closed door, I saw Cyrus taking off his coat and putting it around her shoulders. Her voice was choked with tears. "Cyrus, do you think I'm useless like this? Will anyone ever love me?" His response broke my heart. He pulled her into his arms, his eyes full of pity. "Nonsense," he whispered. "I love you." In my previous life, this scene had led to our biggest fight. He swore he only felt sympathy for her. He promised to see her less often, and he did, until she died and he went completely crazy. But now I knew the truth. His vows, his promises of love, his claims that he saw Tiffany as just a sister, they were all lies. He wanted to have his cake and eat it too. He wanted me for stability and her for excitement. Given a second chance, I just wanted to stay away from these people who made me sick. As soon as I got home from the coffee shop confrontation, my phone started ringing. "Cyrus." I glanced at the screen and hung up. Then I threw the phone on my bedside table and went to take a long, hot bath. When I came out 10 minutes later, wiping my half-dry hair, I found dozens of unread messages and missed calls. As I unlocked my phone, it rang again. "Why didn't you answer?" Cyrus demanded. "Open the door?" There was a knock, as if to prove his point. Then his voice, trying to sound gentle. "Honey, I'm back." But I wasn't buying it anymore. I sat on my sofa without looking up. "What do you want from me?" He didn't answer immediately. He went straight to the kitchen, poured himself a glass of water, then sat next to me. "Luna, don't be angry," he began. "You know Tiffany isn't in good health." I cut him off. "If you're here to apologize, you don't need to." He paused, then continued. "Tiffany is crying at home." I was thinking, why don't you go and apologize to her? I'm afraid she can't take it. I almost laughed. Clearly, Tiffany had provoked me, but because I'd fought back, Cyrus thought it was my fault. The audacity was breathtaking. I stood up and leaned close to him. "You really want me to apologize?" Hope flashed in his eyes. "Yes." He pulled me toward the door, thinking I would compromise like I always had before. But I held back. Meeting his surprised gaze, I said word by word, "Cyrus, ask me to apologize in your next life." His face went through a range of emotions. Finally, he said, "Luna, you've changed. Having died once." I thought to myself, of course I changed. When I didn't respond, he got angry. He swept everything off the coffee table, pointing at me. "If you don't apologize today, we'll break up." This was his usual trick. He always threatened breakups when we fought, knowing I loved him too much to call his bluff. But things were different now. I picked at my ear casually and reminded him, "I already told you this in the coffee shop this afternoon. We're done." "Fine," he shouted. "Break up then. Luna, don't regret it." I walked into the bedroom and came out a few minutes later, dragging a suitcase. "Your things," I said, throwing it at his feet. "Please leave my house." Under his shocked gaze, I literally threw him out. After he left, I looked around at all the traces of him in my apartment. I called a cleaning service with one request. "Make sure to clean up all traces of that stinky man." Then I booked a presidential suite at a luxury hotel and lived there happily for a week. In my previous life, I'd felt suffocated every day. In this life, I was going to live exactly as I wanted. Free and unburdened. Ever since I broke up with Cyrus, I threw all my energy into work. Not only did it make my life fulfilling, but I unexpectedly became the top salesperson of the month. The generous bonus was just icing on the cake. That night, my colleagues insisted I treat them to dinner. Since I didn't set a spending limit, everyone was satisfied and wanted a second round. After a few glasses of wine on an empty stomach, I felt dizzy and made an excuse to leave early. Walking through the long corridor of the restaurant, I reached the exit and bumped into what felt like a human wall. The pain in my forehead made me hiss. I looked up to see a familiar face. "Luna, what are you doing here?" Cyrus frowned, looking me up and down. "Have you been drinking?" I pushed him away. "None of your business." But he wouldn't let go. Drinking your sorrows away because of me. Luna, I knew you'd be miserable without me. He stepped closer, grabbing my hand. Stop drinking, I'll take you home. Just then, a shrill scream came from nearby. Ouch! Tiffany appeared out of nowhere, falling to the ground with a pained expression. Her face was pale, her eyes misty. Cyrus, it hurts so much, she whimpered. But for once, Cyrus didn't rush to help her. Instead, he stared at me as if trying to say something important. I was too tired to watch this performance anymore. You two can talk slowly, I said, rubbing my temples. My taxi is here. As I passed Cyrus, I stopped and said word by word. It's better if we act like strangers when we meet in the future. I'm afraid it'll be awkward. Sitting in the taxi, I deleted Cyrus's contact information. Then my mom called. It was the same old routine. Don't be too hard on yourself. Come home often. And, did you break up with Cyrus? Hearing my mother's voice, tears almost welled up instantly. In my previous life, I'd insisted on marrying Cyrus despite my family's opposition. My mother got so angry she fell ill, and I never received her forgiveness before she died. Mom, my voice cracked immediately. I took a deep breath. Don't worry, I broke up with Cyrus. I'll come home this weekend. Maybe my attitude was too surprising. My mom paused for a moment, then simply said, okay, don't lie to me, and hung up. Life started looking up. My boss seemed intent on promoting me, assigning me the biggest project of the quarter. Love myself, make money, and everything would go smoothly. Good days were definitely coming. I stayed up late working on project plans. The next morning, I woke up when my fifth alarm went off. I grabbed my laptop and ran to work. Just as I reached the company building, I realized my legs were shaking from lack of exercise. I stumbled and fell down 3 steps. As I instinctively protected my head, ready for an intimate encounter with the concrete, someone caught my lower back. After making sure I was steady, the person politely let go. I was still in shock, clutching my chest and mumbling thanks. Then I heard a familiar voice. Luna. The person in front of me was wearing a perfectly tailored suit, looking elegant as a gentleman. It was Asher, the richest man in the city, and also my senior from university. Asher had been like an unreachable star during our college days. Countless girls had crushes on him, but he was as cold and distant as a monk, spending all his time absorbed in experiments. I never expected that the partner for this project would be Asher. We had a polite chat after he saved me, then met again in the elevator, getting out on the same floor. My boss saw me arriving right on time and was about to scold me when he spotted Asher behind me. His expression changed instantly, like a Sichuan opera face, change performer. President Asher, what brings you here? He squeezed between me and Asher. Go get President Asher some coffee? He commanded me. It dawned on me that Asher was the important client my boss had mentioned. I'd taken only 2 steps when Asher called out, Luna, don't forget what I told you just now. I was confused for a second, then remembered our conversation in the elevator. After I'd thanked him for saving me, we'd fallen into comfortable silence. Then he'd broken it. How are things with you and Cyrus? I was surprised he'd brought it up. Ma broke up, but how do you know about us? Asher had smiled, rubbing his temples with a helpless expression. Luna, do you think I'm blind? In my mind, he was like a celestial being who didn't care about worldly affairs. I'd flattered him with a smile. Thank you for the compliment, he'd said. But I've known about you and Cyrus for a while. He'd raised an eyebrow, and for a moment, I could have sworn I detected happiness and relief in his tone. When the elevator reached my floor, Asher had seemed to remember something. There's an alumni reunion at our old school in a few days. Will you come? I didn't know about this, I'd admitted. He'd quickly typed on his phone, then shown me a QR code. You left the group chat, so you wouldn't know. Add me and I'll invite you back. My face had flushed. After getting together with Cyrus, he'd disliked that there were mostly boys in our department group. He'd secretly removed me from the chat and even deleted Asher from my contacts when I wasn't paying attention. President Asher is asking you a question, my boss said, pushing my arm and pulling me back to the present. Okay, I replied quickly. Learning that Asher and I had a good relationship, my boss gave me a few days off to show him around the city. Getting paid to hang out was definitely a rare treat. That evening, Asher and I revisited our old college hangout, a simple restaurant we'd loved for its good food and low prices. The business was still booming. We sat at a small table by the street, glasses of wine in hand as a gentle breeze blew by. We raised our glasses and drank, reminiscing about our youth. On the way back, I couldn't help humming along to the music on his car stereo. Asher gripped the steering wheel, looking ahead with a smile. You haven't seemed this happy in a long time, he observed. I haven't been in a good mood recently, I admitted with a teasing smile. I still have to thank President Asher for this. The car stopped at my community entrance. Asher turned to look at me, his gentle smile suggesting he wanted to say something. But in the end, he only said, "Have a good rest." I nodded, opened the car door and left. I could feel his gaze following me the entire way home. A few days later at the class reunion, I dressed up a bit and arrived at the private room right on time. I pushed the door open and was greeted by noise and excitement. A group of people turned their heads, and cheers rose one after another. "Wow, the department beauty is here! This reunion is definitely worth it now." Asher looked excited when he saw me. He waved his hand. "Luna, sit here." I was embarrassed by their enthusiasm. "I'm not really the department beauty. You're all just being kind." I smiled and walked toward Asher. "We crowned you fair and square," one classmate said with a grin. "You deserve it. No need to be modest." Another chimed in. "Asher had a huge crush on you back then, but you only had eyes for Cyrus." After a pause, someone else added resentfully, "I even lost money betting on it." Everyone burst into laughter. Asher listened with his usual calm smile, seeming indifferent to everything. He caught my eye and motioned for me to drink some water, but I noticed the tips of his ears were red. Just as I took a sip, Cyrus pushed the door open. After some greetings, his eyes focused on me. His expression was complex and hard to read. The next second, a figure appeared and wrapped her arm around Cyrus. "I've been looking for you everywhere," Tiffany said sweetly. Everyone looked uncomfortable, awkwardly diverting their gazes. After all, most people had heard about the drama between me, Cyrus, and Tiffany. I didn't care and just continued eating and drinking. Halfway through the evening, I went to the bathroom. When I came out after washing my hands, I found Cyrus standing at the door as if waiting for someone. The moment our eyes met, he grabbed my hand. "Luna, you've made enough of a scene. Can you listen to me now?" I pushed him away and smiled coldly. "Cyrus, you don't need to say anything to me. I don't want to hear it." Cyrus didn't speak for a long time. So long that I thought he'd given up. But then he asked, "Luna, are you serious about this?" I sighed. How many times did I have to say it before he understood that it was over between us? Suddenly, a sarcastic voice came from the side. "Luna, can't you find another man after leaving Cyrus? What's the point of always pestering him?" Tiffany stood there, giving me a contemptuous look, then suddenly burst into laughter. "But that's right. With your looks, you probably can't find anyone better after leaving Cyrus." I raised an eyebrow and said coldly, "You're absolutely right. Trash should stay in the trash bin. I don't have the hobby of paying attention to garbage." Tiffany tried to rush forward, but Cyrus held her back. He looked at me about to speak, but I reached out to interrupt him. "Cyrus, parading around with your mistress. Is this your so-called deep love?" Cyrus lowered his eyes, unable to respond. "Luna," Asher's voice came from behind me. He approached and placed a warm palm on my waist. "I've been looking for you everywhere. Are you okay?" I stiffened for a moment, then immediately understood his meaning. I looked up and smiled at him. "I'm fine." After making sure I was okay, Asher looked up again. His voice was like ice in winter. "Cyrus, keep your companion in check. If there's anything like this again, I won't mind teaching you both some manners." Asher put his arm around me and led me away. Tiffany pointed her finger at me, trying to say something nasty, but when her eyes met Asher's cold stare, she shrank back in fear. As we walked away, from the corner of my eye, I saw hidden sadness in Cyrus's gaze as he watched me leave. At the restaurant entrance, a gust of wind carried Asher's woody fragrance to my nose. I tugged at his collar. "I can walk by myself now. Don't move. Just lean on me," he said softly. Obediently, I stayed close to him, all the way to his car. Asher's lips were pressed into a thin line as he stared straight ahead. "Thank you, Asher," I said sincerely, grateful for his protection. Asher's hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Through gritted teeth, he said, "If I had known Cyrus was such a person." This was the first time I'd seen obvious anger from Asher, who was always so gentle. Even when someone had stolen his favorite lab equipment in college, he just started coming in earlier. "Luna, your taste in men really isn't good," he said, pulling me back to the present. I was inexplicably amused. Yes, President Asher is absolutely right. The car stopped at the hospital entrance. Asher insisted on taking me for a full-body checkup. Fortunately, the doctor confirmed I was fine. No important parts were injured. After observing me in the hospital for a day, my mother learned the news and rushed over early the next morning with a thermos of bone soup. After carefully checking me from head to toe, she finally relaxed. At that moment, Asher came in from outside carrying several breakfast options. "Luna, I didn't know what you like to eat, so I bought a bit of everything." My mother, who'd been peeling an apple for me by the bedside, let her eyes wander back and forth between us. I swallowed hard and introduced them. "Mom, This is Asher, my senior from college. I quickly winked at Asher, signaling him to leave. After all, my mother had a habit of wanting to turn any good-looking man into her son-in-law. But Asher, as if he hadn't received my signal, sat down and started chatting with my mother. Finally, under my mother's eager gaze, he picked up a bowl of pumpkin porridge and handed it to me. Sweetheart, it won't taste good when it gets cold. He looked like the perfect son-in-law in my mother's eyes. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but I had to admire his performance. Before I was discharged, the doctor gave routine instructions about resting more in the short term. On the way home, Asher suddenly received an urgent call. Okay, got it, he said, hanging up. There's an emergency at the company. I might have to go back. Okay, go handle it, I said. I didn't have anything serious anyway. But Asher hesitated for a long time before finally promising to at least drive me to my building. When I got out of the car, I smiled at him. Don't worry. I pointed to the building behind me. It's just a few steps. Drive safely. As his car drove away, I turned and walked toward my building with a rather good mood. Before I could enter the corridor, a hand forcefully grabbed my wrist. I turned to see Cyrus. Do you hate me so much? Are you using another man to get back at me? He pointed in the direction Asher had left and questioned me aggressively. I was so angry I laughed. He was the one who'd cheated, yet he had the nerve to accuse me. That's between us, I retorted coldly. None of your business. Cyrus looked extremely angry, veins bulging on his forehead. It took him a long time to speak. Look, today I didn't mean to bring Tiffany to the reunion. I've always regarded her as a sister. If you don't like it, I'll keep my distance from her. I'll explain it to her slowly. Give me some time, and we can go back to the way we were. I tried to break free from his grip. Cyrus, the moment your heart leaned toward Tiffany, you should have known we can't go back. Don't deceive yourself. Cyrus stood there stunned, his face turning pale. Impossible, Luna, you've loved me for 5 years. You won't like another man. Suddenly, a force yanked me away from him. A fist accompanied by a gust of wind hit Cyrus hard in the face. If you touch Luna again, I'll... It was Asher who'd come back. After speaking, he shielded me behind him. I never thought the gentle and refined Asher could fight so fiercely. His sleeves were rolled up to his elbows as he punched Cyrus in the face. I've endured you for a long time, Asher said through gritted teeth. Back in school, you and Tiffany were already having an affair. Cyrus's knuckles turned white as he clenched his fists. He grabbed Asher's collar, his eyes wide with fury. What's it to you? Luna is my girlfriend. Have you no shame? I added firmly. Asher's face darkened, his voice icy. Did you hear that, Cyrus? Asher brushed Cyrus's hand away and punched him again. Cyrus picked up a beer bottle from the ground and threw it at Asher. Asher instinctively blocked it with his elbow. The glass shattered, cutting his wrist. Blood flowed down into his palm. I was afraid something serious would happen if they continued fighting. Stop! I shouted. My head hurts. The thick hostility around Asher dissipated completely the moment I spoke. Cyrus stood before me, his face bruised and bleeding from the corner of his mouth. I stepped forward to support Asher, feeling guilty for getting him involved. Asher pushed his tongue against his cheek and turned to Cyrus. You didn't cherish her when you had the chance. Now you're harassing her. You're the one who should be ashamed. The Cyrus looked at me with bloodshot eyes, as if wanting to say something but holding back. He stood there motionless until I helped Asher into the building. I thought he'd finally realized that once some people are lost, they can never come back. I helped Asher upstairs. When opening my door, I accidentally touched his wound and he hissed in pain. Should we go to the hospital? I asked, concerned. No need, Asher said, seeming to think of something. He looked me over carefully. I was worried so I came back. Otherwise the consequences would have been unthinkable. I nodded and gently held his arm. Since when could you fight like that? He was amused by my question. There are a lot of things you don't know about me. I helped him sit on the sofa, and brought the first aid kit to treat his wound. As soon as the cotton swab dipped in iodine touched his skin, Asher hissed. Sorry, I'll be gentler, I said, blowing softly to ease his pain. Asher seemed rather calm. It doesn't hurt, he said with a smile. After bandaging him, I handed him a cup of coffee and told him to rest. Moonlight shone brightly through my window. I walked to the balcony with my coffee and saw Cyrus still standing below, looking up at my apartment. I found it almost funny. Because of my rebirth, the plot had completely changed. I wondered if this was retribution for him not chasing after Tiffany this time. Asher, who I hadn't heard approach, asked from behind me. Do you still like him? I shook my head honestly. No. I just think this guy has incredibly thick skin. Asher didn't say anything more, but I caught the corners of his mouth twitching slightly. After that day, My life returned to calm until Tiffany came to find me in a very public way on Friday. In the bustling crowd, she stood at my company's entrance, scanning everyone who came out. When she saw me, she rushed over. Unlike our previous meetings, this time she seemed different, less arrogant, more disheveled. "Luna, let's talk," she said. "I have nothing to talk to you about." Seeing that I wanted to leave, she followed me persistently. I said a few words to my colleagues, then went to a nearby coffee shop with her. I stirred my latte while Tiffany looked up at me and suddenly said, "Luna, I'm with Cyrus now." "Okay, so what exactly do you want to say?" She continued, "There's a saying, childhood sweethearts can't compete with someone who comes later. But look, you still lost." She gently placed her hand on her stomach. I might even be pregnant with his child. I suddenly wanted to laugh. It's probably better not to keep it. After all, with you being so stupid, the child would be a disaster. After saying that, I got up to leave. Just as I turned around, I saw Cyrus pushing the door open. He was panting as if he'd run over. The moment he saw me, there was complex emotion in his eyes. "Luna." Tiffany immediately tried to rush at me, but Cyrus grabbed her arm tightly. "What are you trying to do, Tiffany?" she screamed. She called our child brain damaged. Cyrus's brows furrowed almost imperceptibly. He withdrew his hand and said coldly, "Didn't I tell you not to bother Luna anymore?" His voice was loud enough for everyone in the coffee shop to hear. Tiffany stammered, unable to form coherent words. Cyrus's voice turned even colder. "The doctor said your condition has stabilized recently. From now on, we should go back to our original relationship." Tiffany's face turned deathly pale. She seemed on the verge of madness. "Cyrus, why are you treating me like this? We grew up together. Why can you only love her and not me? What am I lacking compared to her?" Looking at Cyrus's expressionless face, Tiffany suddenly laughed bitterly. "She doesn't want you anymore. Who are you pretending to be affectionate for now? After all, you don't love Luna that much. Otherwise, how could you be so easily influenced by me? Cyrus, wake up. Only I truly love you." I watched with satisfaction as they turned on each other. After enjoying the show, I turned and left. But Cyrus chased after me. "Luna, I'm really sorry about today." We walked one after the other down the street. I didn't say I forgave him, nor did I want to waste words on him. I turned around and said firmly, "Cyrus, you should understand that between us, a simple sorry can't make things okay anymore." "I know," he said quietly. "But Luna, can we be ordinary friends?" "No. From now on, we can only be strangers." After saying what I needed to say, I walked away without looking back. Recently I'd moved back to my parents' home. Asher somehow learned about this. And I could see him near my community entrance, when going to or coming back from work. Although I felt a bit embarrassed, I have to say I quickly got used to this kind of life. There was something comforting about knowing someone cared enough to check on me. After the project cooperation with Asher's company was completed, I finally had some free time. I found the opportunity to invite him to dinner as a thank you. As soon as I went downstairs, I saw his car parked at the entrance. "Congratulations on the big contract," he said, smiling as he handed me a gift. Due to our frequent contact recently, I'd discovered that Asher wasn't as cold and aloof as everyone thought in college. On the contrary, he was actually very humorous. I accepted the gift gratefully. We went for hot pot, which was lively and relaxing. Halfway through dinner, a staff member gave Asher a rose, motioning for him to give it to me. I realized it was May 14th, Rose Valentine's Day. In front of everyone, Asher knelt down on one knee like a perfect gentleman and presented the rose. "Luna, happy Valentine's Day." I smiled and accepted it. I couldn't help myself. I've always been a sucker for roses. After the staff member left, Asher looked at me with a knowing smile. "Do you like flowers that much?" I followed his lead naturally. "Yes. Which girl doesn't? If you like them, I can send them to you every day." His eyes stared straight at me, and his dark brown eyes sparkled with something deeper. My heart skipped a beat. I let out a small gasp. Asher used his chopsticks to pick up a piece of beef and put it in my bowl. "Don't worry about it," he said softly. After dinner, we took a walk in the nearby square to help digest our food. Because of the festive atmosphere, we saw many young couples wearing glowing accessories, walking hand in hand. Asher somehow produced a light-up headband and wanted to put it on me. Since I was in a rare, relaxed mood, I didn't refuse. He leaned over, and that pleasant woody fragrance filled my senses. The streetlight above cast shadows on his face, making his eyes look dark and mysterious. He stared straight at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. We were standing in the middle of the walkway. Seeing the crowd about to approach, I said, "Maybe you should step a little closer." Asher smiled. "Okay." He pretended to move aside, but I didn't stand steady and fell right into his arms. He turned his head at the same moment, and my lips accidentally brushed against his cheek. We were both stunned. After I regained my balance, I felt like my heart was about to jump out of my chest. I wanted to run away like I was fleeing a crime scene. But Asher grabbed my hand. As if he'd finally mustered all his courage, he took a deep breath. "Luna, I like you." With nowhere to hide, I met Asher's sincere gaze. "Asher, you know I just went through a failed relationship." "I know." We found a bench and sat down. Asher poured out all the words he'd been holding in his heart. "Actually, the first time I saw you, I fell in love. It was genuine love at first sight. Back then, I was afraid of staring at you too obviously, so I planned to tell you my feelings after getting to know you better. But before I could work up the courage, I found out you were with Cyrus, so I chose to stay silently in the background, watching over you." He paused, pain flashing in his eyes. "After graduation, when I heard that Cyrus had cheated, I got close to you using the project as an excuse." Looking back at our history, Asher's voice grew thick with emotion. "Luna, the thing I regret most is not confessing to you immediately back then. This time, I really don't want to miss my chance." My eyes began to sting, and I didn't know how to respond. "Asher, I know, Luna. You don't have to feel pressured. I can wait as long as it takes." After I went home, I tossed and turned in bed, unable to fall asleep. Every time I closed my eyes, Asher's handsome face would appear in my mind, leaning close with that sincere confession. I wasn't completely oblivious to Asher's feelings during our time together. The little things he did for me showed his affection everywhere. But I'd just escaped from one relationship, and I really didn't want to jump into another one so quickly. After rejecting Asher, I threw myself back into my busy routine. Day after day, work became my refuge. On the weekend, I wanted to sleep in, but my mom had other plans. She started mopping the floor early in the morning, making enough noise to feel like an earthquake in my dreams. During breakfast, my mom heaved a deep sigh, looking genuinely pitiful. "Asher is such a poor boy," she said dramatically. "I heard he's been working so hard these days that he fainted in his office. He's still in the ICU for emergency treatment." She kept citing cases of young people suddenly dying from overwork. I was shocked. When did this happen? Where is he now? After my mom gave me the hospital address, I rushed there without even changing out of my pajamas. On the way, panic consumed me. I kept urging the taxi driver to go faster. When I arrived at the hospital, sunlight streamed through the window onto Asher's face. He lay there with his eyes closed, looking peaceful but frighteningly still. In my panic, I ran over and hugged him tightly. "Don't die," I whispered, my voice choked with tears. "I haven't promised to be your girlfriend yet." I was crying so hard that tears and snot covered my face. Suddenly, a voice came from above my head. "Luna, do you want to be my girlfriend?" I looked up to meet Asher's clear, very much alive eyes. I suddenly felt completely deceived. Later, after we officially got together, I discovered that this guy had conspired with my mother to trick me. But at that moment when I heard Asher might be seriously hurt, I had to admit something important. I panicked. Regarding Asher, although I was attracted to him, after what happened with Cyrus, I'd lost confidence in love. I'd locked myself up like a defensive hedgehog. But when faced with the possibility of losing him, I realized something crucial: people shouldn't be afraid of love when they're alive. Love itself isn't wrong. The mistake was choosing the wrong person. Later, at my wedding with Asher, I received an unexpected delivery, a large red envelope from Cyrus. He didn't come in person. Besides money, there was a letter and a ring inside the envelope. I opened the letter. The paper was yellowed and had water stains on it, probably from tears. "Luna, this is Cyrus. I'm not with Tiffany. In the days without you, your shadow has always been in my heart. I know you won't forgive me, but when I heard the news of your marriage, I still sincerely hope you can be happy." He continued. "The ring in the envelope is the one I promised to buy for you. I know it's too late, but I still want to give it to you." During our relationship, diamond rings had been very popular. The marketing claimed a man could only customize one ring in his lifetime to witness eternal vows and unwavering love. I'd been crazy about wanting Cyrus to buy me one, even just a simple ring. But he'd always refused, saying love didn't need material things to prove it. It had ended with nothing. Now that we were separated, he finally remembered. But what was the point? Just then, Asher came over and asked me to greet some guests. "What's that?" he asked, noticing the letter. "A love letter from Cyrus. Take a look." Asher glanced at it briefly, showing no reaction. "It's quite sincere, but honestly, I have to thank him for letting me find such a precious treasure like you." I threw the letter and ring into the trash together and went to greet our wedding guests with Asher. After getting married, Asher spoiled me like I was a little princess. He was attentive, caring, and genuinely devoted. Late one night, looking at the bright stars in the clear sky, I suddenly thought of something I'd read once. Good things will always come to those who wait. And when they arrive late, it can be an even sweeter surprise. Sometimes the universe has to tear down the wrong things in your life to make room for the right ones. My first life taught me what I didn't want. My second life showed me what I deserved. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey of rebirth, revenge, and ultimately, real love. Luna's story reminds us that sometimes we have to lose everything to find what we were truly meant to have. If this story touched your heart or made you think about second chances in your own life, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more amazing stories of transformation and triumph. Until next time, remember you deserve love that lifts you up, not love that tears you down.